This very picturesque town of Woodbury Pines could be able to hold in its heart the horrendous murder of their neighbor Kevin Thompson that June night in 2016. Brutal stabbing, more than 20 lacerations perpetrated inside his home. The horror was in the way such a brutal act came about from all those acts of betrayal. Into this tumultuous triangle came Carly Summers, 18 and right in the middle of an affair with him, to the great anger of her stepmother, Linda Summers. What started as a simple act of defiance in her rebellion against Linda would soon spiral into a darkly sinister nightmare that, at its end, left two bodies and would shatter the fragile mechanics of their once proud patchwork family forever. The Summers family is picture perfect, but inside, chaos reigns. Brian Summers, hard-working dad, breadwinner, and just oblivious enough not to notice his family falling apart around him. And then there's Linda, his second wife, well, more like a stepmom to his two teenage kids from his first marriage. Let's not sugarcoat it. Linda was no Mother Teresa. She had a past that even the town gossip couldn't fully uncover. And the kids, oh, the kids. Carly and Derek, Brian's kids from his previous marriage, both rebellious in their own ways, especially Carly, 18 and ready to blow this town up, emotionally, physically, whatever it took. The resentment she had for Linda, it was thick, like smoke that just wouldn't clear. Derek, a little younger, was quieter, but when he spoke, it was with a bite. This patchwork family was already on edge, but the real crack came in the form of a scandalous affair. Not Brian's, not even Linda's. Nope. The affair that tore them apart was Carly's. And guess with who? Carly and Kevin's relationship had been a well-guarded secret, cloaked in whispers and stolen moments. It began innocently enough, two young souls seeking solace from their chaotic lives. Kevin, who was charming and worldly, became a temporary escape for Carly, offering her a glimpse of a life beyond the confines of Woodbury Pines. As their rendezvous grew more intense, so did the risks. Each clandestine meeting brought a thrill that turned into an intoxicating obsession, pulling Carly deeper into a web of deception. Little did they know, the walls of their secrecy would soon close in, exposing the raw pain and betrayal that would haunt them all. The neighbor. But wait, it's worse. The neighbor wasn't just any neighbor. In his mid-40s, Kevin was recently divorced, and while he tried to charm the locals with his friendly smile and easy laughter, something about him sent shivers down the spines of the residents of Woodbury Pines. Was it the way his eyes lingered a moment too long? The way he always seemed to be lurking around, as if he were waiting for something or someone? Everyone in town knew Kevin's reputation and whispered behind closed doors, but no one dared to confront him. That is until Carly decided to get back at Linda by hooking up with him. Classic revenge move, right? Except this wasn't just a hookup. It was an affair that spiraled into something dark, dangerous, and deadly. Kevin's charm masked a more sinister reality, and the townsfolk were painfully aware of the underlying tension he brought with him. They exchanged knowing glances as they watched him move through the neighborhood, always just a little too close to the children playing in their yards. The whispers about his late-night escapades and questionable connections became the talk of the town, growing like a snowball down a hill. As Carly entered the picture, the dynamics shifted dramatically. What began as a rebellious act of defiance against Linda transformed into a perilous game of cat and mouse, with Kevin playing the role of both lover and predator, ultimately leading to a deadly encounter that none in Woodbury Pines could have foreseen. The beginning of the end. Linda wasn't oblivious to Carly's antics. She felt the tension in the house like a live wire just waiting for a spark. She knew her stepdaughter loathed her, and Linda was no stranger to the pain of a fractured family. She caught wind of the affair quickly. Late-night texts and secretive smiles danced across Carly's face whenever she thought no one was watching. One night, unable to shake her suspicions, Linda decided to follow Carly, heart racing and fists clenched. Her hands clutched the window frame as she approached Kevin's house. The merry sounds of laughter and music blared loud into the night, camouflaging the darkness inside. Looking through the window, Linda felt her heart fall. There they were, Carly and Kevin, entwined with each other in the most intimate of embraces, lost in a world that had no room for her. The stuff of nightmares, scenes that light up a firestorm of rage within her. She stormed back home, angry and repelled, but she didn't say a word to Brian. Not yet. Linda had her plan to institute, and so she set it into play, keeping Carly right under her thumb, insistent on reminding Carly who ran this house. The next day, Linda had cornered Carly with the air between them sizzling. "I know what you're doing with him," she spat, her tone as corrosive as acid. "And if you don't stop, I will make sure your father finds out. You know what that'll do to him, don't you? It'll destroy him, and you'll be to blame." Each word of Carly's was a shard of glass, and the voice was cold. "You think I give a damn about this family?" In her defiance lay a density of weight so heavy, so electric, there was the sense of a storm about to break. As the tension crackled between them, the reality of their shattered relationship hung in the air like an ominous cloud. Linda had never imagined that her home could become a battleground over such a destructive affair. The walls that once echoed with laughter now felt suffocating, trapping both women in a cycle of resentment and anger. Carly's rebellion was not merely against Linda. It was a battle for her own identity, a desperate attempt to reclaim power in a family that felt increasingly out of her control. Each confrontation was a reminder of the fracture that ran deeper than their disagreement. It represented a loss of trust, love, and the very foundation of their family. And with each passing moment, the sense of impending doom grew stronger, as both women realized that this twisted game of manipulation could lead to devastating consequences, far beyond what either could anticipate. The night everything changed. It was Thursday night, about 11 p.m. The humidity of the night air was thick and felt like an unstable presence pressing down onto all that lay in and of Woodbury Pines. Brian worked late at night, as was expected, totally unaware of the chaos building at home. As Linda thumbed her phone off, though she was nowhere near still in her mind, Carly. She would have escaped again, this time driven by the spirit of rebellion in her blood, to go to Kevin's house far from that suffocating life that had been just hers. But not tonight. Tonight had something to it that was more sinister and forbearing than Carly or Kevin could have ever imagined. At 11:45 p.m., the screams broke through the stillness of the night and came to Mrs. Whitmore, who adored a dose of gossip. She was such a nosy neighbor. They were not ordinary screams, however. They were desperate and chilling kind, turn a peaceful night into a nightmare. She peeked out her window and saw Carly, running from Kevin's residence, drenched in blood, her face a mask of horror. She shook and gasped, but remained utterly still, as if leaving the house was more frightful than what she had actually seen, and perhaps it had. The phone rang as Mrs. Whitmore dialed 911, her heart racing as she struggled to process what she saw in front of her. Yet by the time actual cops reached his door, what was happening in the house of Kevin resembled something out of a horror movie. Blood splattered everywhere, on the floor, on walls, making some sort of grotesquely abstract canvas of violence. On the ground, in a pool of blood, lay Kevin, face down, stabbed fiercely more than 20 times. It was an ugly kill. Whoever did it had to be filled with hate, as if it was something he wanted Kevin to pay for some unspeakable thing. The horror of that moment hung heavy in the air, an invisible shroud that engulfed the neighborhood. Mrs. Whitmore's heart raced, her mind whirling with disbelief and fear. The scream still echoed in her ears, a haunting reminder of the chaos unfolding just steps away. As she awaited the arrival of the police, her imagination ran wild with possibilities. What could drive a young girl to commit such a brutal act? In a town where secrets festered beneath the surface, the lines between right and wrong blurred. The other neighbors, peering through their curtains, exchanged anxious glances, their lives forever altered by the violence that erupted in what they thought was a quiet, safe community. Woodbury Pines, once a picturesque haven, now stood on the precipice of a nightmare, and the true extent of the darkness that lay within its inhabitants was only just beginning to surface. But it is not even the worst. Carly wasn't the only one. The officers had hardly started their grim search of Kevin's house when another shocking revelation met them. At the foot of the stairs was Linda's body, its form lifeless, twisted at some unnatural angle, a sight to make the officers' blood curdle. The scene was a wet chaos, and as the police investigators tried to fit all the pieces of this brutal crime together, it would weave through desperation, betrayal, and rage, forming an unraveled tapestry. For the umpteenth time, Linda had followed Carly to Kevin's house, but she was not going to sit down and take it this time. No, This was more than a mother-in-law's reaction to jealousy. This was the boiling point after a long period of tension had been building up. Fueled by that powerful combination of fury and despair, she was determined to confront her stepdaughter and the man who so callously shattered the fragile peace of their already fractured family. With every heartbeat, the air would thicken with touches of dread, adrenaline coursing through the blood, blinding the judgment. Exactly how much those dark revelations that night had become to him were of shadows old. It was a bout of police investigation, which must have cornered Carly and Kevin, and their voices rose and spilled into the high cacophony of hurt. Fast risers, a violent argument filled the air with accusation and regret of heartbreaks so long buried. Linda hurled herself at Kevin with all the passion of despair. She was very near to the breaking point. Reality struck too late. Carly's desperate attempt to intervene failed as the conflict escalated into a full-scale war. Physical violence erupted, filling the room with disturbing sounds. Blood splattered on the walls, an eerie reflection of a family torn apart by treachery. Kevin lay motionless, blood pooling on the floor. Linda, in a tragic accident, tumbled down the stairs, her final fall sealing her fate in the dead of night. Whispers began whirling through Woodbury Pines, and just what had occurred that night became the topic of everyone's interest. Indeed, many even thought Carly must have schemed to do it all. She was finally fed up with serving Linda and felt that her life was bound in the fetters of their dysfunctional family. These murmurs snowballed into a story where Carly was not a victim at all, but more of a puppeteer in control of every string, destroying her family so masterfully. Did she know exactly how to push Linda over the literal and metaphorical edge? That idea sent chills down the spines of those who could remember their family's problems and their issues all too public for the world to experience with them. After that harrowing night, Carly vanished without a trace, her disappearance wrapped in layers of mystery. Some said she fled town, starting anew somewhere far away from the ghosts of her past, while others insisted she never left Woodbury Pines at all. Whispers of her presence echoed through the town as rumors spread that she was still lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. As the days turned into weeks following that fateful night, the atmosphere in Woodbury Pines grew increasingly tense. Residents who once felt secure in their quaint community now locked their doors a little tighter, peering suspiciously at their neighbors, unsure of whom to trust. The police investigation dragged on, but with every passing day, more questions emerged than answers. The local news buzzed with speculation, fueling a frenzy of theories about Carly's whereabouts. Some residents claimed to have seen her late at night, wandering the streets, a shadowy figure moving through the fog that blanketed the town like a shroud. Others recounted chilling tales of strange noises coming from the old Thompson house, long abandoned since the horrific events unfolded within its walls. The house, once a symbol of community and togetherness, had become a dark reminder of betrayal and loss. Meanwhile, the town's psyche began to fracture. Gossip spread like wildfire, with each resident adding their own twist to the story, painting Carly as a cold-hearted villain. "Did you hear she planned it all along?" one neighbor whispered over the garden fence, while another chimed in, "I bet she was the one who pushed her stepmother down the stairs." The truth, clouded by emotion and hearsay, slipped further from reach, morphing into something monstrous. Each version of the story added layers of complexity, as if the very act of telling it transformed the participants into characters in a tragic play. The once bustling streets of Woodbury Pines grew quiet, a ghost town haunted by the memories of the night that changed everything. Meanwhile, Brian, devastated by the loss of both his wife and his daughter, struggled to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. Friends reached out, offering condolences, but he felt utterly alone. The weight of grief sat heavily on his chest, suffocating him as he navigated the wreckage of his family. Questions tormented him. How had things spiraled so far out of control? Did he miss the signs of Carly's turmoil? Had he turned a blind eye to Linda's jealousy? Haunted by guilt and confusion, he began to isolate himself from the community that had once rallied around him. The very thought of facing the whispers and judgment of his neighbors made him shudder. Instead, he found solace in solitude, burying himself in work while memories of happier times played like a haunting melody in his mind. His dreams were filled with flashes of laughter, family dinners, and the sweet, innocent moments of Carly's childhood. a stark contrast to the nightmare that had unfolded. Amid his anguish, a flicker of determination ignited within him. He was not ready to let the legacy of his family end in tragedy. Determined to uncover the truth behind that horrifying night, he resolved to find Carly, even if it meant facing the dark corners of their shared past and unraveling the intricate web of betrayal and sorrow that had engulfed Woodbury Pines. What do you think? Where could Carly have disappeared to? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more exciting content. Curious to know what happened when Karen's secret affair with the neighbor's son took a dark turn? Watch the full video to find out.